Good evening. My name is Arlene Miller, and it's my privilege to welcome you to this edition of Our Town. This is a special taping that we're doing with school committee candidates in preparation for the June 13th. That's just a week away from the time we're taping this. But we'd like all of you to be introduced to the 4 school committee candidates running for 3 positions. Before we get into the, my guest right now is Melanie Rothstein, right? Did I say it right?
Yes,
Great, thank you. And she's one of the candidates for school committee. But before I introduce her to you, or have her introduce you to herself to you, I want to reiterate that there are candidates. There's a candidate running for selectman, running unopposed, that you can vote for. A candidate running for a planning board that you can vote for. 4 candidates voting for 3 positions in the school committee. That's almost half of the school committee being replaced, all new individuals who have not been on the school committee before. And you may vote for 3 of the 4 candidates running for school committee. And then there's another question, and that is for the DPW yard. You have to vote yes or no on the DPW yard in order for that to be finalized, that decision for the town to be finalized. So, with that being said, welcome, Melanie. Congratulations on being a candidate for the school committee.
Thank you.
Is this your first time into the political arena?
Yes, it is.
Isn't it fun?
Well, I'll be glad when it's over.
Yes, a lot of people, myself included, prefer to be the elected official, not the candidate. The candidates, it's a lot of work.
That would have been much easier.
Yes,
but that's okay. I've learned a lot, met a lot of people, and we have a lot of great candidates, so
we're
getting along very well.
I'm looking forward to meeting each of you during this process. So tell us about yourself. What do you do? Why are you running? A little bit, how long have you been in town? That kind of stuff. Just a general. Who's Melanie?
So I have lived in Long Meadow for 21 years. My children, who were 1 and 2 when I moved here, are now 24 and 23. So I've been a stay-at-home mom since I moved to this town. Prior to that, I have a nursing background and a paralegal background. So I started out taking care of the wee, tiniest, littlest children. Those were premature babies, and the NICU is where I worked. And from there I went on after I got my paralegal certificate working in medical legal work. So I have a little bit of legal and policy reading and analysis that will hopefully come in handy on school committee. When I moved to Long Meadow, we were in a position I could stay at home, which I'm thrilled to have stayed at home with my kids, and for 19 years pretty much been involved in the schools with them. Involved with kids not only in school but outside of school as well. So in school I jumped right in as PTO and various positions, committee positions, and just in-school volunteers in the library, in the classroom, and the best part, field trips.
Anything in particular that was meaningful for you in that?
I loved running the book club because I love books, so I love that, and I end up spending a lot of my money on books that I could bring home for my kids. I did that for many, many years. I spent 15 years at Center School alone, so that's where the bulk of my volunteering came in.
Elementary.
In the inner works of the schools in elementary, because I was there for 15 years with maybe 1 year off. So 14 out of 15 years I was at Center School.
Were you
alone.
there when they did when they redid it?
I just came in when the class returned from the high school, so we were probably the first class to attend a full, complete year in Center
Was that
School.
long ago, the renovation? I've lost track. It took so long to get it, and then...
My daughter started in 1998 in kindergarten, so it must have been finished right around 97, or that spring,
Sure.
spring of 98.
Sure.
I don't remember exactly when.
No, that's fine.
So then, and then as we moved on into the middle schools. Well, I was still, as my older 2 were still in middle school and high school, I still had that younger one. In the elementary school, so I mostly focused there. So let me just say, I mentioned my 24 and 23-year-old. I also have a current 9th grader in the high school.
Oh, okay, so you do
So
have
there's about a 9 or 10 year span between my top 2, who were a year apart, and now my younger one.
Oh, okay.
So, once I got her off the ground then, and my older kids were in high school, that's when I started getting involved more in the booster club with sports. My kids play 2 and 3 sports, so that will keep you busy for a whole year, just trying to organize and run the fundraising and all the important things for the kids as they're participating in sports. Now that I'm back at the high school, we have a brand new high school, so that's new and exciting. I'm back involved with PAC.
PAC is?
The PTO, the parent organization at the high school. They might have different names. Some are PTAs, I learned. Some are PTOs. Some are PACs.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're all different.
Yeah.
So outside of school, I've been involved with kids, coached the travel soccer team, Brownie leader, taught them at Sunday school at church. So I've just spent really the great 20 years I've had with my kids, in the schools and with other kids as well. So
I was going to ask you before you mentioned your youngest child, because it sounded like you were going to be running for the school committee when you had no kids in school, and I thought, well, that's unusual, because usually it's the other way around.
Right.
So why now? What's sparked your interest to take the plunge to become an elected official on the school committee?
Well, a couple of years ago, I think that's when I got more involved with what was going on. I mean, it's always involved with, budgets or teacher issues and things like that in terms of the town politics. But I think what piqued my interest more in bringing me back into paying more attention to school committee issues were some changes that were going on with our education, more from a national or federal level on down. So when we developed the Common Core curriculum about 5 years ago, it kind of piqued my interest to see what's going on, how are we implementing them, how are they affecting our schools. We had different assessments that were possibly coming in instead of our beloved MCAS that we've had for...
That's said with affection or not?
A little bit of both. Certainly we have an over-testing culture that unfortunately, again, comes from the top down. We also have to find
By top,
ways
you
to...
mean federal, state?
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have to implement some assessments. The question is, how much, how often is this becoming too much of the focus? Are we teaching to the test? Things like that, which are either working themselves out.
Well, you've opened up a whole bunch of can of worms here. Wow.
Well, it's things that are always ongoing that I think are important to know about. And
Sure.
so I started attending the school committee meetings. We were debating, do we continue with MCAS or do we...
So you have a choice?
Well, we had a choice at one time. We're going back over a couple of years. Initially, our...
I don't mean to be asking.
No, not at all. I'll go on the best of my
everybody hears
memory
about
serves me.
MCATs. Our kids have to get ready for MCATs. Tomorrow's MCATs, It's
Well, initially when we switched over to Common Core, most states, well, I shouldn't say most states, but a lot of states were trialing the PARC test. At least our state of Massachusetts was going to trial PARC, which is an acronym for something.
Another version of
the test, right. So initially our Commissioner of Education, Mitchell Chester, allowed districts to choose if they wanted to trial the new PARC or to stay with MCAS. So back several years ago we decided, and that was one of the school committee meetings I attended, had done some research on it, presented my information about why I thought we should stay away from PARC and we should stick with MCAS, and in the end that's what Superintendent Doyle and the school committee decided to do, stay with MCAS.
What was your rationale?
Well, MCAS is more at home. I want to try to keep our education, our policy at home as much as possible.
What do you mean
PARC
at
is,
home?
well, written here in the state of Massachusetts, our own
okay.
people writing it and guiding it. And again, we've had, years and years of developing MCAS and perfecting it and trying to get it right. And PARC was something new. It was not being written
So you didn't
in
want to be
this
the
state per
guinea pig
se.
in the...
Well, guinea pig or just being able to have more of a say in it. There were other issues with PARC. It wasn't going very smoothly. PARC was being tested on computers, which we may eventually get to when the time is right. And, a lot of things that had to be worked out, but we felt like we want to stick with what's known with us, we meaning school committee and whoever else gave input. And so where we are today is Mitchell Chester has decided to go with kind of a hybrid of MCAS and
In Massachusetts.
I don't think you'll hear anyone say kind of a PARC hybrid, but it's now called MCAS 2.0. So we're going to kind of hopefully take the best of MCAS, be able to control it a little better ourselves, while still adopting or keeping some PARC-like things. So this is the first year, is where I'm getting at, first year with MCAS 2.0.
Do local school committees have a say in this?
Yes, well, they had a say in, again, whether we participate now. It comes down from above, so it was the Commissioner of Ed saying, I'm going to give you a choice at this time, take it back to your towns and decide.
So am I hearing you say that, so you're active in the state level?
Oh, I've been active at the state level, yes, I have.
Okay.
These issues are pretty much behind us now, but as it was coming to the forefront, particularly the adoption of Common Core, which were new standards, and they were not based, out of our state per se. I mean, this is definitely a can of worms, but it was, we adopted...
No, it's interesting. I had no idea that...
Well, that's why I became so fascinated, and so we adopted Common Core in 2010, So then it's taken, really 5 years or so before we were able to learn about it and service the teachers and purchase new books if necessary. So that's one thing school committee has spent the past several years on, trying to align our books and our curriculum with Common Core. So it pretty much is aligned. Now we're maybe in our second year of actually moving forward with it. And so, kind of still, it's a 10-year plan kind of with Common Core, and now take from 5 years out, see how we're doing, what happens with our, our test scoring and things like that. So it's just a personal interest of mine.
No, but that's important.
But I pay attention on the state level. I have been up to speak with state legislators on issues.
Interesting. So, public schools, how are public schools in your mind? Does Long Meadow do okay, public school?
Oh, absolutely. I think whatever Long Meadow is, whatever ball they're tossed, curveball, slider, fastball, I think we're going to do well because we have committed people, we have great parents, teachers, the kids are great, and I think we'll be able to handle it. And I think it's working itself out in terms of the, the new standards. It's working itself out. And I think we have more flexibility now because with the, we went from No Child Left Behind under George Bush to Race to the Top under President Obama. Now we have ESSA, which is Each Student Succeeds Act. So with that,
is that federal?
And I don't want to, bore you with it.
No, but that's your passion. That's interesting.
Yes.
That people need to know that.
Yeah. So this act now gives us even a little more flexibility in that we can no longer per se be required or mandated to follow Common Core. We have a little more flexibility with it, but as I mentioned, Common Core is in place. We're using it, but we now have flexibility to adapt it to better meet our needs.
So how much?
A done deal.
So the school committee, there are 7 people on the school committee. As I mentioned in the intro, the 3 of you will be new to the school committee.
Yes.
No matter what happens, 3 of you are going to be new to the school committee of the 7, which is it's just amazing. It's like a sea change, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Just saying it's a sea change. So, does the school committee have much to say about curriculum? How does that dynamic work?
Well, I think what school committee looks at, and this may not be every year, might not have been last year, might not be next year, but you certainly want to look at what your curriculum goals are. So you follow the curriculum as it's handed out per se, but you have the flexibility. You follow the standards, I should say. So it's kind of semantics of standards versus curriculum, but you follow the standards, but the curriculum is how you implement those standards.
But the school,
so just to finish is that the school committee can evaluate what your your curriculum goals are. So in meeting with the director of curriculum, you can set up your particular goals. So is it going to be more reading or literacy or what your focus is going to be. So in that way, and you can implement different curriculum programs. So for instance, last year, the committee voted on new science models, a more hands-on model with science. So that was something that school committee had to bring it, set up a committee to look at new curriculum for supporting science, to look at it, come down with their choice, present it to school committee. I did watch that. I've probably been watching or attending meetings for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Which is why I am running for school committee, because having watched, researched, come and given testimony or given my opinions and backed it up with research and calling school committee members and saying, hey, I got this great article, if you've seen it. So now I decided after 2 years that I could probably sit behind the desk and actually put my hand up and have a vote and have a say. Put my money where my mouth is.
So curriculum is your passion.
I like curriculum and I like policy, but I also like just what's going on here at our schools, which I'm sure we'll get to, middle school and, and things like that.
Let's talk about money then. So you're talking about changing curriculum. That's a budget. To me, I'm looking at budget. A lot of people look at the school committee and they say, well, or the schools, and they say, well, you're more than 50%, 60%, 70%, whatever it is of the town budget. And where does that fit into the big picture? So in your mind, I asked this to Tom as well, where does this fit into the town's budget in terms of your mind? Is it just school committee or bust, or is it schools or bust? Or
absolutely not. But it is a large portion of our town budget, about 70%. It can vary, as you mentioned.
If you include the pennies, 70, about 76.
Right. So it is a large part. But I've been involved in the schools, but I've also been a very involved town member. So I attend the town meetings. I probably have been at the past maybe 19 of 21 years I've lived here because I have an interest in knowing what's going on. This year I went to the senior center meetings back in the fall, long before I ever decided to run, because I care what's going on there. I attend the DPW forums. Over the years, I go to the talks, I want to hear. So I'm part of the town. So I don't see school committee as, as a vacuum of this is it and this is, the most important and everything has to be sacrificed, for schools. However, if I'm in school committee, I'm an advocate for the kids. I have fiduciary responsibility to them. So it would be my role to act in the best interest of them, to bring things forward, but ultimately it's the town's decision on a lot of these things. And I am a town voter as well. So I have to look at it as a, almost a domino effect of how every issue in town affects.
So DPW, how does that fit into the middle school, the whole thing in your mind? You said you went to the senior center meetings and all that, so you're looking at the whole town? I'm asking, and the reason I'm asking you and then the other candidates this question is because you're friends with the people who are going to vote. And at that same moment, they're going to be voting up or down in the DPW yard. So I'm assuming whatever you tell them to do, they're going to do. But
well, I think since we don't, and maybe I'm wrong at this or don't quite understand, we don't have kind of a town-wide long-range plan in which we can look at or prioritize town issues. We kind of do them on a bit by bit or
although there is a new committee being formed.
Oh, that's good.
It's formed.
Oh,
actually, to do all three, but to
prioritize or figure out like a priority.
Well, the priority. I mean, everybody sort of agreed DPW was going to be first because it was ready to go, but then to meet and discuss the others as they come.
I think that will help because unfortunately these issues can pit one another off on each other, which is never good. So maybe if we can address them from
I think everybody
issue.
agrees we need all three possibly.
Right.
It's just dependent which comes first and what the resources are that go to each.
Sure. So you asked where does the school fit in with DPW and or senior center. I think DPW is a few steps ahead in that it's already on the ballot. So I see that as moving forward. In terms of
go ahead.
Yeah, so in terms, my personal feeling is that priority should be given to the facility that is in the greatest need. And along those lines, we've had engineers look at our schools, and we have quite a few concerning issues there, as well. So again, I think, hopefully this will be the year for the DPW as well, and we'll continue in our efforts that have been set forth so far regarding middle school, which will be our biggest concern for our schools, I think, over the next couple of years, or 5 or 10 even.
Yeah, it won't be tomorrow.
No, it won't be tomorrow.
No, because it's going to take, the committee still doesn't know one school, two schools, which school,
it would be probably 5 to 7 years. So we have, as you probably are aware, a statement of interest was submitted last year. So what that does is has the state review the state of our school, and it gets looked at in conjunction with all the other schools who are looking to receive some help. And the state committee will take the worst 15% of applications. So we have no idea of knowing if our application will be accepted or not. This year.
That they roll then, right?
No, I believe, and I'm still learning that you have to resubmit every year.
Okay.
So as of right now, what I've heard is the applications are down this year, which perhaps gives our middle schools a better chance. But it just depends on if they fit that bottom 15% of what the reviewers think are in the most need of repair. So even if it were to be approved by the state, then you start that lengthy process of, getting your estimates and deciding if you're 1 or 2 schools, going to the town with it. So, and then you have to start construction, and that could, 3 years. So 5 to 7 years would be probably a best case scenario if it happened starting this year. So, it could be 10 years. So I'm happy and I support that this process is moving forward, simply because it can take quite a while still. But DPW is a few steps ahead. So for whatever that's worth, that's where it stands. Meaning still the townspeople have to vote on it. I can only vote for, whoops, I hit my mic.
That's okay.
I can only have one vote myself, but that's where it stands now.
Sure. So how do you feel about fitting in with 7 people on a school committee? Is that comfortable? Or?
Well, I think the 4 remaining have I've watched this year, and I think they've done a great job communicating. They each bring something different to the table. The 4 candidates that we have are wonderful also as well. We each bring different strengths and weaknesses and different things to the table, and I think that's a great way to complement one another. And so far, we're having fun. We're together at many of the same events, whether it's a town meeting or at speaking to PTOs or at Long Meadow Days or wherever. And we talk. We have a good. We're very supportive of one another.
Good.
In that we believe that you can't go wrong this year with school committee. We're going to have 3.
That's what I heard.
3 good people. In terms of myself. I like to debate things. I do a great job with research. I'll always come. People laugh when I say that because they're like, she's a researcher. She brings it to the table. I got my clipboard now this afternoon. So I can communicate, but I can make my own decisions. I'm a good worker bee too in terms of getting on some of these committees. I like to just do my work, bring it back to the committee. I use common sense sometimes, which is sometimes necessary after you've looked at your research, and sometimes it can boil down to what makes the most sense too.
Yeah, sure.
After you've looked at the facts.
So
that's what I bring to the table.
Okay,
ready to go to work.
This is why you're taking this step now, because you really feel that this is the time to.
Yeah, it's kind of just a culmination of just first volunteering, then getting involved in policy and issues specific to our town, then actually getting involved with school committee issues and members, and now hopefully making the transition onto school committee.
So how do you feel about the relationship between the select board and the school committee? Have you have a feel for that, or are you?
Well, I think that varies from year to year in terms of it can be who's on each of the committees. It can be what is the hot topic issue, if there is one. I've seen things not go so well, and then I've seen it go very well. I mean, this year in particular, regarding with the budget. I mean, it helps when your numbers can fall into place, and
well, that takes a lot of work on everybody's part.
It takes a lot of work, and
it looks like it just happened, but it doesn't just happen.
No, it didn't. And last year there was a lot of goings back and forth, and tugging and pulling and pushing and pulling. Worked it out last year to the best of the ability that both sides could, including the finance committee. This year it went much more smoothly, again, just depending on where we are and what our needs are.
Right. And we have a limited amount of resources. It's not like, it's the sky is the limit.
Yeah, it's like your budget's at home, and you may have money, but you have to decide what you have to do with that money. So what's a desperate need, and then what are some of your wants, and then just some fluff on top of that.
Well, we don't have a lot of fluff in our budget, actually.
Well, okay, right, but maybe just in terms of school committee, like you have your responsibilities with budget and handbooks and things that you have to do that year. So those are your needs. Then you have your wants. Might we want a new school or a new playground? And then you kind of have not fluff per se, but just some residual issues that you may look at if you have time that year and it's not so much going on or not so contentious. Then you just look at other things like a recess time or homework policy or things like that. So just kind of breaking it down.
Yeah, I think what people
needs, wants, and
a lot of people don't understand is that unlike the select board might have some subcommittees, but no committee has more subcommittees than you guys do.
Oh my gosh, and I just met with Stephanie Jasmine a few days ago to kind of get up to speed a little bit with some things going on, and that was one thing that we discussed, and I actually have the list here with me today. There have to be at least, 10 or 12 subcommittees. So we discussed that because, first of all, there are not enough of us to go around. Really, I mean, you're loading up on 2 and 3 committees sometimes.
It's a big time commitment.
It's a time commitment. And, the chair alone is doing so much extra work, and then your committee members, there's 6 of us, and if there's 12 committees, you're doubling up. And then there are all the special projects that are coming up that isn't a set committee. It's a particular issue that's coming up that you have to invest time in. So, Stephanie and I talked about, well, wouldn't it be great if we can either combine or, get rid of or consolidate, just streamline a little more so that.
Yeah, I was on one of your committees. It was called the Green School Committee Green Subcommittee or something.
Right.
I can't. It was a long name.
Yeah.
And it was difficult to meet because the school committee. There were 2 school committee people on that at the time, and it was they had so many other responsibilities. It was really difficult to meet. So I mean, things worked out fine. It wasn't like it was, do or die kind of thing. But it was
that is an issue. that maybe can be looked at. One of those other issues that if there's time to look at, hey, let's fix up these committees.
Well, I guess the question to the candidates are, and you've already sort of answered it, do you have the time to do that? I mean, some people say they want to be on the school committee or they want to be a selectman, but oh, by the way, I'm not going to do anything but go to the school committee meeting.
Oh, no,
I'm not talking about you, I'm just saying this is
no, I understand that my role is to be part of these committees and to give input that are it's part of the school.
Sure.
And I do have the time. I stay busy. Sometimes I wonder where the time goes during the day, but I'm still very involved in, in school and after school and in my children's lives, even though 2 are grown.
Sure.
They
never go away, really.
They don't really always go away, but they're doing great, and they've graduated college and are on to post-grad, but you're still
Sure.
keeping an eye on them and helping them to move forward. So, but yes, I'm fortunate that I'll be able to put the 10 or 20 hours, whatever it is a week necessary to make the school committee the best it can be.
So I know you have notes. Is there something I haven't asked you that you want to say? Because
maybe we'll
you think about it.
Summarize it up here a little bit.
You don't have to summarize it. You can. 5 minutes.
Just to summarize why.
I've been throwing so much stuff at you. I just want you to be able to.
For me, why school committees? Strong ties to the community that I've had over the years, strong ties to the children. I care deeply about our children, our teachers, our town. And this is just, school committee will be a continuation of that. And particularly my youngest child will be spending her last 3 years in the school district that I will have served my 3 years on school committee. So for me, it's kind of a way to come full circle and to, wrap it up, put a bow on it, and go out swinging, unless I do more than 3 years.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I never ask anybody to make a commitment for that right now.
Right.
No.
So we talked a little bit about issues for next year. Budget is always an issue, and it will be, as we talked about, a little more contentious next year.
See any big financial things other than the big school, the new school?
Well, I think just what helped this year is that, special ed is a large part of the budget, and they were able to, through just either tuitions running out on certain kids, to bringing services here at home. That has really saved hundreds of thousands off the budget this year, so that won't necessarily be there next year. So that's gonna, we won't have that available money next year. And this year, because of our population demands, we were no longer in need of 2 teachers, which is always sad and disappointing for them. But it shows that we're providing the needs of our student population.
Student is declining, population declining.
Middle school, again, that will probably be the issue for the next 10 years, not the next year. And then you're always looking at things like they did a homework study this year, and recess I mentioned, air quality, the student handbooks, curriculum, and just strategic planning.
Let me back you up. Is there something on the air quality that you think should be done now, could be done now? As an interim before a decision is made on the schools? You're talking about the middle school, I'm sure.
Yes. Do you mean in the interim between?
Well, you said air quality was an issue. Is that a standalone issue, or is that just?
I think that's going to be. I don't. You never know until you get in there. But I think that is going to be one of the issues next year of addressing the air quality issues.
Now, not waiting for the new school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if our new school does not happen in the next 5 years, we have to deal with the issues that we have here, which will be roof, windows, and air quality.
Yeah,
and so we just have to make a decision of for how long do you continue to repair versus replace.
Right. Good.
So on a final note, what I wanted to say, and you may have more questions, but we all know Long Meadow's our schools are great. They're wonderful, wonderful schools. But we also can't stay great unless we continue to, stay current and innovate and update to a certain extent as needed. But I wanted to say how I think, and I do need to take a sip.
No, that's fine. Take your time.
Allergies.
Yeah, no, that's okay. You've been doing most of the hard work here, so you go ahead.
Yes, by the end of the day, I usually do not have a voice left.
Yeah.
So what I want to reiterate to our townspeople and parents is what makes our schools so great. So starting at the top and coming down, what makes Long Meadow schools great is starting with our superintendent. We have a new superintendent who just completed his first year, who has, from what I've witnessed watching school committee meetings, has done a great job of being a leader and a facilitator with that. Things have gone so smoothly, and I did tell him that himself. So
Good.
And I've heard great things from some of the principals that I've spoken to about his leadership and his innovation. Then we come down to our other administrators, principals of our schools. We have a nice mix of both veteran, experienced teachers and some and new principals.
Yeah.
Yes, principals. Thank you. Who the experience to mentor and new ones to maybe bring in some new ideas that they've learned. And then our teachers are always striving to make our students the best citizens that they can be. So then we get to our students. So academically we do very well. We do very well here. We do very well with kids placing and going into jobs in the future. So other than academically, we have musically arts inspired kids. They're very charitable kids, which is important, and they're very aware of worldly issues and environment issues, which is good. They care about the world. Then we come down to the town level, so we have a wonderful police presence and involvement in our town, and lots of studies and research and sharing it with the community on what's going on with drinking and marijuana. That I'm keeping my eyes on that one too, to see what happens with the legalization of marijuana. So we have, and then we have the DPW, which the schools couldn't run without that, and
Sure.
the keeping our sidewalks and our roads
And your fields,
our parking lots and the fields, and so we have that great support system. We bring in expert speakers. I've attended most of the talks here in town on raising kids or helicoptering parents or marijuana. I went over to Wilbraham and just heard a wonderful educational, informative speaker who's head of neuroscience at Harvard, who spoke about marijuana in the teenage brain. We have great experiences for our kids to go abroad and do many things. We've just redistricted, so that's settled for the next, hopefully, 8 to 10 years. So that's, we've got a good balance of where and where we have our students. And we have an excellent special ed program that allows us to meet the needs of all of our kids. So that's why I think Longmeadow schools are great. And lastly, why should you vote for me?
Yes.
I'll put in a little plug for myself. I'm committed to the town. I will do my research. I will work hard. As I mentioned, I like to debate, but I keep an open mind in listening to other opinions. I've had the 19 years experience in town, having 2 kids who have already graduated from Longmeadow schools and now are out of college, have graduated college. I have experience with kids of all ages. I've done the middle school 3 times. I've seen 4 of our 6 schools under construction.
You've done a lot.
I've been in Tent City, which for our graduating kids who just moved this year to a different venue. So I do have experience. I have seen a lot with a lot of ages. And I think that these experiences and my involvement with school committee and in the town has paved the way for me to take a seat on the school committee.
Thank you. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up. That was great.
I do have a Facebook page if anyone wants to look me up to read a little bit more about me, and there's contact information as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arlene.
So thank you, Melanie Rothstein, and she's one of 4 candidates running for the school committee, and on June 13th, you will have an opportunity to vote for Melanie and or any of the other candidates. You can vote for 3 of the 4 candidates on that day, as well as for a selectman, a planning board, and for the DPW yard. So to our audience, and to Melanie first, thank you, and to our audience, thank you for listening, and please do remember to vote on June 13th. Good evening.